It's called PIRON, Global Development.
Okay.
And we're based in Bonn, Germany.
No, okay. Thank you. I think we can be starting so that we don't lose out on time, since I'll be leaving in not more. I have not more than 20 minutes. Okay, thank you for that. And then Paulina?
Yes, I agree. I'm not sure why the other participants are not joining, but we are recording it, so I hope that we can share the information that you're sharing now with us.
Yes, you quite. Do you have an interest in this subject?
I do, I do, but yes.
Just bring it as Romain has brought it.
Yes, I mean I'm working as an intern now at Parts, the network that you probably. Oh, we have a new participant also. But my personal background is also that I'm studying global studies and cultural encounters in Denmark, but I'm also from Germany and I studied sociology before. And yes, so I'm also personally interested in this topic. But yeah, maybe we also have a new participant now, I see. So
okay.
We can maybe try to do.
And then, yeah, Eckhart.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name the right way. Yeah, no, we are taking simply a minute to talk about why we are interested in this area of sustainable agriculture.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, so my name is Eckhart. I work for Humboldt University for the research program for religious communities and sustainable development. And I was supposed to lead the other group that now didn't happen. So then my colleague asked me to come here. So that's a very pragmatic reason to be here. Nonetheless, I'm very interested to hear more and to learn more. So in the research program, I focus on the Middle East, and I always enjoy learning about Africa since I started working at Humboldt, because that's what most of the colleagues do. So yeah, glad to be here.
Okay. No, thank you to all. I think let me start with where Romain, I think, started us, looking at the whole area of ecological renewal. Many of the messages we are getting is like the earth is being destroyed, the planet is in trouble. It's similar to COVID, the messages we've received in Africa. Certainly, Romain has talked about it. Many more people could easily fall into hunger, and all those multiple messages. For us, we are saying yes, this is happening, but we have something to do about it. We can't remain prophets of what we don't want. We better become prophets of what we want. So let me talk briefly about the program of the OAIC and Sustainable Agriculture. We are an organization that brings together what are called African independent churches or African instituted churches. And many of these churches are largely in the rural areas of South Africa and in the mainly urban informal settlements, the poorer urban settlements. I can see there is Lucalo also. You're welcome. So how do we look at this? I think we've worked on a program for long. There was a way we were working with the community programs, and so in general to say, okay, we want to improve food security, and then we trained the people. They went and did what they did, but later we shifted to saying now the household is the center of focus. That is increasing production at that level, increasing consumption of the dietary, sort of moving towards nutrition. But later we say certainly also the whole area of ecological renewal. Eastern Africa, the area where we are, which includes some other countries, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and all that. East Africa itself is small, but the categorization by the Food and Agriculture Organization, it becomes a wider area. This is an area altogether which has still 30.8% people living in undernourishment, and the people who are living in a state of severe food insecurity is about 20%, but the people living in what is called moderate food insecurity are 61%. That is about 2/3 of the population. Then how do people who live in hunger care about the earth? That is a major question. Then that hunger also is as a result of the ecological changes. I'll give an example, that there are foods, especially vegetables and fruits, which simply germinated. The seeds remained in the soil after the harvest, and then those vegetables and fruits could just germinate and people look for them. But now, in most places, because of soil degradation, it's no longer so. Now you have to buy seeds and plant those vegetables and plant those fruits. What has happened? That's where the consciousness about the quality of soil, we talk about soil health in itself, comes in. Another area that is being impacted highly because of looking for more productive land is the destruction or the reclaiming of wetlands for people to plant in those areas because there is water. They don't. That means they can do irrigation, or they even plant in the wetlands themselves, reclaim them and start working with them as farming land, or reclaim wetlands and start using them for construction of houses. Another area is the reduction in the number of trees. I know the presentation is that certainly the richer countries which have been in manufacturing, in production and consumption modes which are not sustainable. But we are realizing that unless we deal with it, in Africa, Africa is the continent which is losing the number of trees per year. For example, Nigeria loses over 200,000 hectares of trees every year. So when we talk about ecological renewal, we need to calculate what we have lost. What have we lost in our soil? And how do we bring it back without simply talking about fertilizers? We are talking about organic farming, bringing back the organic content of the soil. We are talking about leguminous plants which when you plant, you don't simply get food, but they are also for soil health. We are talking about agroforestry, that now we've reached a point where we are saying each household, if you are living on 2 acres of land, how many trees are there? And where do you get firewood? Because much of the trees go into energy for cooking because electricity is still so expensive and reachable by a majority of the population. So how do even families consciously produce firewood? They produce trees for energy so that they are not reducing. If you know that you are going to be using maybe 10 trees a year, then you should be planting a tree. You should be planting not less than 20, so that when you've used 20, 10, you've replaced them with 20. When you're cultivating on the soil, you know that you're not simply getting food out of it, but you are also enriching it. Now, key areas we work on for collective action. What are the structures? Number one, the church congregation at community level. That is a gathering place. We are looking at the liturgy in that place. Does it include an ecology? Number two, the cultural structures in themselves. We are realizing that there are narratives which are not even in theology, but they are in the cultural narratives of local communities, which really reflected ecological harmony. So that may not be theology, but they can be cultural values. How to bring that to the surface and bring them. I'll give you an example. I was listening to one of our mobilizers, because right now we are working on a program that is mobilizing 150,000 households. And that is with an average of 5 people. Are talking about 750,000 people who should be in action dealing with these issues. I realized that when I visited one community, the way this mobilizer, local mobilizer, was talking about the health of the plants, the narrative was not different from the health of the human being in the local language. The illness, he was describing a certain crop as ill in the local language. In English, we can't say the tree is ill. We can't say the tree is sick. But in the local languages, it's the same. Do you see that? So the narrative we picked from the Landi languages, we are realizing that it does not reflect ecological harmony. So going back to recover the narratives that reflect ecological harmony. So the congregation, the cultural structures. Now, another area we are looking at is that people are interested in participating because they know that it will have some impact on their families. So the whole area of establishing community seed banks, so that people are in charge of producing and in control of producing the seed that they are going to use. And this one, we are beginning to work with the public research, agricultural research institutions, so that we are moving towards certified community seed banks, so that people are working with replantable seeds, not whereby they have to rely on the GMOs, the genetically modified ones, because that also gives them the motivation to care for the crops and for the earth, because they know that the quality of soil matters on the quality of seeds you are going to get and the harvest itself. Then we are talking about shared learning at community level. This is what Philip says. This one becomes multi-faith, that different people come together and they start sharing knowledge, and then they go out to act. So one of the reasons we do this is that an individual can't transform a community. We are talking about community development process, learning processes. We are talking about collective reflection processes. We are talking about collective processes of producing seeds. Now farmers are moving towards collective processes of marketing. In doing that, the process itself is community building, community mobilization, organization, and building. And it's a process of deepening social consciousness, so that it's a collective process, so that people act. Our plan is to reach 7.5 million farmers in the next in the next 5 years across the continent, because we work through church structures. This is not about so much, okay, we have some little external support, but we've realized that with the time, 70% of the resources come from the local communities, the congregations, in linking their work with their survival. And now we are going beyond survival to thriving communities. And then we are talking about thriving generations, the next generation. So that's simply what we do. Number one, creating awareness as a collective process through church congregations, enabling communities to come up with structures for their own reflection, analysis, and the action. And some of those structures are called community seed banks. And then some of them have moved to be cooperatives for marketing. But in all these structures, the issues of soil health, the issues of wetlands, issues of number of trees, deforestation, are discussed. In fact, one of the process we've done is taking them, working through a process of time trend. We start with a multi-generation process. We get people like who are 70 years in the community. They sit in their own group and they talk about what they have seen from the 1960s. Then they talk about that, what they saw, how they live, the environment they lived in, the ecology in the 1960s and the 1970s. We give an opportunity for every generation to bring in up to the younger generation. That's where the younger generation picks it up, that the environment was much healthier, much better, much productive. Then we start analyzing the changes that have been taking place through the last 50 years. Interestingly, it becomes intergenerational and it becomes multi-gender, multi-faith when people start acting. I think that's where we are. So it's mainly linked to farming that is linked to ecological renewal, farming that is linked to nutritional outcomes, farming that is linked to improved household income, and then farming that is linked to accountability. And that's why we bring in accountability to the next generations. That is it, in brief.
Thank you very much. This was very interesting. Sorry, I came late. Did you appoint a moderator for the discussion?
Sorry, we forgot to do that.
Yeah.
Can we get to her?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Could you maybe
Could I?
Yeah, you could. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm running into another meeting, as Philip said, but really, I would like up to give it up to 40 minutes, 12. That side in Germany, it will be 40 past 20 to 1. I think I'll finish 20 to 1. Okay.
Okay. Thank you again very much. I'm just getting the message that we can overstretch by 5 minutes.
Okay.
But the floor is open for questions and comments right now. So please feel free, unmute yourself. We're only 7 people. This should be relatively easy.
Eckhart?
Yeah.
Hi, Eckhart. Thank you, Reverend Lubaale, for that quite comprehensive overview of your activities. It's quite inspirational. I think 2 aspects that perhaps I would like to kind of raise and perhaps comment on is the one on the intergenerational knowledge share. I know it's quite kind of prevalent in Africa, but would you agree that we need to kind of more, not institutionalize, but we need to have a proper structure of how we document those kind of intergenerational sharing? Otherwise, it does go to waste. I think that's one of the fundamental issues that from an African perspective, even the rest of the world can learn from that. Second of all, with regard to the again reflecting on what Professor Francois Engelbrecht shared with us in terms of some of the irreversible effects of climate change. And in particular, if you look in the African perspective, that there are 60% of the active population in Africa really work in agriculture, and if climate change have such a dire impact on Africa, how are we going to kind of with the job losses, with employment that's already quite substantial in Africa, how are you going to contain that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Lubaale, would you like to comment?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yeah, certainly the first one, the structures for documenting those, what comes from the intergenerational sharing, that is key. What we are realizing is that the people who work on it at community level, it seems as if this is day-to-day knowledge. They don't know that time will come, and so it's normal for them. The grandparents have always talked about it, so and they pass it on. So how do we work on those structures? Then that questions the African education system in itself. We need to bring this. We don't simply have to lament. We need to question the African education system, not simply question it, but integrate it. Exactly. You know, I was visiting my elder brother, and they are millennials and in the household, well educated and all that. But interestingly, as they were growing up, they were not eating some of the traditional vegetables. Our mother is already gone, and Dorcas said, he said, let me tell you, Daddy and Mommy, whatever you told us to eat these things, they were so terrible. But when grandmom came and there was a small garden, and I went when I was 5 years and we started picking it, said, eating it with the grandmom, changed it, and my children will eat it. Do you see? That is not part of the African formal education system. So I agree with you fully, and this should be a major a major recommendation for us to bring that. Then we need to work on that, exactly, because generations go. Because I did this process in my own community. I remember it was around 2000, that is 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, the knowledge I have, the people who were 80 years at that time, they are gone. Those who were 80 years, 70 years in the year 2000, they could talk 50 years back. So they could easily talk about the 1950s and the 1940s. Now the generations we have, even if they are old, someone who is 70, that means that person was born in 1950. This person will start sharing, especially what they saw when they are 10 years old. So they start around 1960. So that is the huge loss that continues of the undocumented resources. So I think that I want to I'll leave you conversing. I'm running into my governance meeting. Joblessness. I think the action here, we are realizing that the farmers are beginning to raise a voice on global warming, issues to do with the climate change, after they've deepened their own understanding of their own environment. It was difficult for them to relate with the global issues before they related to their own local actions. When they finished their local action and there's a drought and there are floods, they realize that even if they do their best, there are things they are not in charge of. And that's why we are talking about a collective voice to engage international public policy. That's where we are. Allow me to leave you, and I run into the meeting where I'm a secretary because I'm chief executive of my organization. The board is waiting for me. I'm very big apologies. This was
Thank
fixed
you
up
very much. Yes, we let you go. Thank you so
yes,
much.
I would like you to continue. Don't close the meeting, please.
Will do. Will do. Thank you very much.
My email is available. The conversation continues. My email. Now I'm ready to continue with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for the rest of us, I'm just getting the message that we are quite free with time until the next plenary session, which is in 20 minutes at 12 o'clock. So what we could do, as far as you still have time, but please feel free to, because the official ending time would be around now. So if you had planned to take a break or to have lunch or anything, then please do feel free. But for those of us who still want to stay and continue the conversation, maybe we could just have open discussion for another 5 minutes and then see if we can actually agree on 5 points that we would make into an agenda statement following our discussion. But for another couple of minutes, just floor's open for comments, and I'll keep making notes.
Hello. Thank you,
Yes.
Exas. Yeah. My comment is on the soil health. Our guests spoke about having organic farming, that is maintaining the health of the soil without fertilizers and stuff like that. That is to allow the land get the health naturally. But I wonder how this can really help, or what I would have loved to really ask him to expatiate on that, because I feel if we need rapid answers, rapid results, waiting for organic farming will take a longer time than using inorganic way to sustain the health of the soil. So I would like, maybe if maybe later, or if there's anybody who can expatiate on that, to really enlighten us on how, on the issue of timing and the organic farming he spoke about. I don't know. Do you get my question, please? Yeah. So that's my question or my comments about the health of the soil, because we need a fast way of having the health of the soil to get a fast or rapid results as regards the sustainable agriculture. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Would anybody like to comment on that? Otherwise, I'll note it down as a question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Eka,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Eka, I think on my behalf also, I mean, it's really a pity that the Reverend couldn't stay a little bit longer. I think one, because there's a few kind of questions, but also kind of clarifications. And my question or clarification would have been in terms of he mentioned community seed banks. I think, and it's quite a significant leap, and it's a very good initiative to have. I know in Europe they have some, I think, a World Seed Bank in Finland or somewhere. And it's important. And I, being from South Africa in particular, haven't really heard that communities take that initiative, from an agricultural point of view, to have these seed banks, because it really, from a food security point of view also, plays a major role, but also in securing that because of climate change, there are certain, seeds that and through pesticides and all kinds of things, it really changes, and because the soil changes, and you'll see this kind of, some seeds don't grow anymore in certain areas. So that's why it's quite important to kind of preserve that seeds also. So my question would have been to the Reverend is that how did they actually do that? And he mentioned about a research center also. Do they do it in collaboration with this research center? Or, yeah, I would have been very interested to find out how they do that, in particular, the community seed bank.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Is there anybody who knows anything about this, who can add any information here among us in the group? Doesn't seem to be the case, in which case we'll just note it down as a question. Any other comments? And if that's not the case, I would suggest that we maybe transition into the question if we can come up with 5 points by way of an agenda for change. Agenda for action, sorry.
Could I make the kind of first point?
Please.
I think we spoke about it now, just before the Reverend left, and I think it's important, to and for the lack of perhaps a better word, in terms of kind of institutionalizing a community, what they call it, intergenerational knowledge, in how, perhaps from a scholar point of view, universities need to go into this, or institutions need to go into this local communities where it's actually being done, and kind of record, kind of capture, kind of, find instruments how you can actually, adapt that to other communities. Because I think sometimes communities are oblivious to how to do it, and as the Reverend said, for that community in particular, it's so everyday that for them it's not a big thing, but also, as he mentioned rightfully, that people that were in the 2070 years old are not a year there anymore, but they shared knowledge, that you're not sure whether it's actually captured somewhere. And yeah, for me, it's how do you kind of cement, how do you continue that trend of intergenerational knowledge sharing, because I know from my experiences, even from a kind of social political point of view, when I grew up, my grandfather and father explained how politics work in South Africa, but later onwards, that was not explained to my nieces and cousins anymore, and I don't even do it to my nieces and cousins, so yeah, it does get diluted, and at some point in time, it will actually disappear.
Yeah, what's a good tag for this? What's a good notion for a heading for this? For the sake of the notes?
Intergenerational knowledge sharing instruments or mechanisms.
Yeah, that's good. That's catchy. Because I think the agenda idea, bring it down to 5 points that will
Yes.
somehow be, that's really helpful. Thank you very much. What else? We still have a few minutes. If you think 5 points to take away to wrap into a catchy, meaningful phrase, what else should be on there? We have intergenerational knowledge sharing instruments as number one.
Eckhart, if you allow me another chance.
Yeah, please.
The Reverend spoke a lot about, and even in his introduction, about ecological renewal. And I think, and I've captured the point where he said, in terms of what we have lost, in terms of, as a plan of action, is how do we either quantify ecological renewal, or how do we kind of regenerate ecological renewal? And I know he mentioned like planting trees, and a lot of the actions are very collective, from a collective point of view, creating awareness, analysis, community seed banks. So a lot of the things are very collective. So yeah, I think in terms of ecological renewal aspect you mentioned.
Yeah, that's helpful. I'm just looking at what he said about the church communities and awareness, and looking at the liturgy and all this. Should that go into our agenda in some point? You partly, I guess you partly thought of this when you said it's a very communal exercise.
To conclude my kind of the second point I made, as an heading or as an action, it would probably be something like ecological renewal strategies. What would be, how can we create strategies, ways to kind of enhance or promote ecological renewal.
That's good, yeah. What else for a third point for our 5-point agenda? We have intergenerational knowledge sharing and ecological renewal, the strategies. What have we lost? How can we quantify or regenerate ecological renewal with a strong collective dimension to it? Anything else that should go into our wrap up?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I'm sorry I came in late. I have a problem with power in Kenya, in my area. So I've just what I've gotten is the change. So I had him when I came in. I had him talking about the change of education system. I think I got that. So, like in Kenya, we have changed the education system to competent based, whereby students are supposed to be taught skills, not just the paperwork. So they have to go back and learn how to plant trees. They have to go back and learn how to plant crops and do manual work alongside the book, alongside the certificate they get. So they're supposed to do all this so that the integration, the old system, we are going back to the old system where everything was balancing and not just concentrating on the book, but we have to concentrate even to plant the trees, to plant the vegetation, etc. So that is my take, though I didn't get it right, but I feel maybe somebody can help me to make a point right. Yeah.
Yeah. Can somebody comment if this is what he meant, and also if this is also applicable in the other African countries in the other regions of East Africa?
Eckhart?
Yeah.
I think that was a very pertinent point that Lukalu mentioned there. Definitely from a South African perspective. But also what Lukalu mentioned in terms of, a competent-based outcome learning. I think that could be kind of a phrase to put it under, where really, and South Africa has adopted that system also in our new curriculum. And which is a system, actually, funny enough, that was born like in the UK, because a lot of our educational system is based a lot on the UK kind of system, and it has already kind of bear a lot of very fruitful products from that education. It's called competent-based outcomes learning.
That's good. I'll write that down. So I'm looking at the time, and we should probably draw to a close, but there's still 1-2 minutes if anybody wants to add anything. Because otherwise I would send you back to the plenary session with a bit of time for coffees or other breaks that you might need. And Paulina, anything to add?
No, thank you. I think I also unfortunately missed some parts of the input, but yeah, I think it was an interesting discussion. There were many points that were mentioned now, but yeah, maybe we can discuss that another time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And I'll close this meeting, and we'll see each other in the next plenary session in 4 or 5 minutes.